If you are a woman who looks capable and amazing on the outside, but instead feels tired in a way sleep just doesn't fix, if you're carrying a lot, achieving a lot, doing all the things, but you're quietly feeling disconnected from your own aliveness, I know exactly what that feels like. So if we haven't met, I'm Kara. I'm a spiritual mentor, a soul doula, and the founder of the Radiant Evolution Collective. And for nearly 3 decades, I've worked as a nurse and a holistic consultant. But the most important thing I can tell you today is that I'm a woman who had to learn how to return to myself after burning out on my own strength. And that is why I want to talk to you today about the deeper meaning and hope of Easter, the energy of today's pink moon, and why I believe that this moment is speaking so directly to the modern woman who has become soul tired. So for most of my life, I tied my worth to work, to doing, and to showing up for other people. I was not lazy, I was not broken, I was not incapable, but I was definitely over-functioning, and I was over-carrying. I was overriding myself for so long that I forgot I was not just here in this life to perform, but I was here to really inhabit one. And that is why this week feels so potent to me. The energy of today's full pink moon and this year, it is so spiritually relevant to where we are and the doorway that we're sitting at as we welcome in spring and welcome in the resurrection. And so I want to offer some of this through a sacred lens, not necessarily a religious one or one you've necessarily thought of before. I want to talk about finding yourself in a way of being that has allowed you to become deeply disconnected from your own mystery, and how to become more faithful to the responsibilities of your own soul instead of all the doing. We have to unlearn how to recognize ourselves as powerful, intuitive, and tender and radiant because of what we're doing, and instead because of what we're connected to, what we're embodying. So I want to talk about 3 things. Again, the deeper meaning of Easter. What is this pink moon symbolizing for us? And why I believe we're being invited to return to something far deeper inside of ourselves. So let's dive in. In Christianity, Easter is the central feast that commemorates the resurrection of Jesus 3 days after his crucifixion. Excuse me. Christian sources describe it not only as a remembrance of a past event, but as really the roots and the basis of hope and a new life and defeating death. And I want to pause there because I think I was taught Easter is a story that happens once a year. But I wasn't taught that it's a pattern to really live. But if I'm being honest, resurrection is a pattern. And it happens when aspects of our life return to this place of wholeness or completion. It's what happens when love enters a situation that was seemingly impenetrable. It is what happens when what was buried inside of us is not really actually gone. So when I look at Easter through a sacred lens of healing, I feel a tug inside myself to go deeper. And I see resurrection not only as theology, but as an invitation to let something inside me emerge, to live again, whether it's my truth or my heart, my creativity, my relationship with someone or the sacred, my ability to recognize beauty, my capacity to receive instead of just produce. So for me, resurrection has come to mean the return of the self that got buried underneath performance, the shouldas, the need tos, the have tos. Like many women I serve, I'm highly capable and I get things done and I'm responsible. And I've often been the strong one for many people. I developed a workaholic tendency, not because I was shallow, but because somewhere along the line, I associated doing with safety, doing with being liked, and I became soul tired. Tired in my body, tired in my spirit, tired of being on, tired of holding so much, tired of living as function instead of essence. And I think this is one of the great hidden struggles of our time, because so many of us have become incredibly accomplished, and we should celebrate that. But we haven't been initiated into our own inner life. We are not feeling fulfilled. We have been trained to manage, perform, endure, solve, and serve, but not to revere ourselves and our fellow sisters as sacred. And now I'm learning to tend my own mystery, to return to the trust in my own rhythm, and to recognize that intuition and beauty and tenderness and receptivity are not weaknesses. They're the medicine. So if this is resonating with where you are right now, take a second to subscribe to the channel. I share videos like this every week to help you return to your own rhythm and to help you remember who you really are, especially at the soul level. And I teach you ways that I used to heal. Now let's talk about today's moon. April's full moon is called the pink moon, and not because it turns pink, but because the name is traditionally tied to the blooming of pink phlox and other signs of the arrival of spring. And this year's April full moon is also the Paschal moon, the first full moon after the ecclesiastical spring equinox, which is why it sets Easter's date. So even before we say anything mystical about it, this moon is already speaking the language of emergence, such as blooming and renewal and revitalizing, returning. That is nature's way, nature's intelligence. And spiritually, this is where I believe it becomes especially meaningful for high-achieving, sensitive women, especially those feeling the effects of burnout. Because when the natural world says life is returning, it can stir everything in us that is not yet fully alive or is misaligned. It can make us aware of what feels out of harmony in our life, what feels like we're overextending, what feels emotionally undernourished inside of ourselves, and what feels disconnected from our own beauty, our own truth, and our own belonging. You may notice that this is what the moon is bringing up. More, instead of chaos, it's bringing up awareness and tenderness and imbalance and this longing inside of you for peace. So it is helping us to recognize a call to return to simplicity, to something that is intuitive inside of you, and it is opening you to a heightened awareness. So the spiritual message really is not about hype. It's about recognizing what's gone dormant inside of you and what has been buried so that you could survive. But now, in this time, we are being invited and maybe even nudged a little bit to say, it's time to take a look at this. It's time to really get reflective and ask, what is the restlessness that I feel inside of me? What needs to be illuminated by this full moon and brought into my attention so that I can move forward and reclaim a little more of myself? So let's go into the area of discipline. So for years I thought I needed more skills, and what I really needed was space. What I needed was resurrection. We don't necessarily need more strategy for squeezing ourselves tighter or more productivity hacks or reasons to delay our own becoming. What we actually need is permission to come back to our own lives. And resurrection, in the modern healing sense, may look like this: letting the false self die, The self that believed worth had to be earned by doing. The self that believed rest was a symbol and a sign of weakness. The self that believed being needed was the same as being loved. And the self that believed control was safety. The self that believed there was no time to feel and no time to listen and no time to tend the soul. That self may have helped me survive, but it couldn't lead me into wholeness, into a life I deeply desired. And that's why this Easter matters so much to me in this moment, because Easter says endings are not always endings. Tombs are not always final. What looks silent may still be very holy, and what appears buried may be preparing to return. This is also why I believe so many of us are feeling the call of the divine feminine right now, not as a trend and not as branding, but as a true remembering, a remembering that there's another way to live, a way that honors intuition, it honors nature's intelligence, it honors the beauty as medicine, stillness as medicine, and it honors cycles instead of constant output. A way that honors the healing of our body, the healing of our heart, the healing of our earth, and the way the sacred is woven into every aspect of life. Inner knowing, relational intelligence, holy receptivity, embodied wisdom, and tenderness with boundaries. These are mysteries that we are learning to live without apology. And I think I was not simply burned out because I worked hard, but I got burnt out because I had been severed from these parts of myself for a very long time. The way I had been living was functional, but it wasn't sustainable for the soul. And this is where I personally feel the path of the Marys comes in so beautifully, because the feminine presence around the Easter story carries something really essential. It carries devotion, steadiness, witnessing, and a love that remains. Presence that does not flee when things get hard or dark. The Easter mystery is not only about triumph, it also includes the waiting, the not yet, the ache, the mystery, and the tenderness that requires us to stay present and clear when we just don't know quite yet. So we are becoming, but we're not there yet. We're somewhere in between. And when we are in that in between, we want to acknowledge that it's not failure. It's not the quiet of emptiness. It's not the end. The soul has seasons too, and some seasons are resurrection seasons that call us and ask us to patiently wait. So if you're listening to this and recognizing yourself, here is what I'm learning to hold true for both of us, for me and you. We are not here only to be efficient. We're not here only to be needed. We are not here only to carry, fix, produce, prove. We're here to remember and to receive, to soften, to become, and to let what is true deep inside of us take up more space around us. This pink moon and the Easter is an invitation to return not to what you were before and to hard life, but to deepen and come into relationship with the essence of who you are beneath the noise. So as we move through this week, I want to leave you with the question I'm asking myself. What in me is ready to come back to life? Perhaps it's joy or peace, intuition or truth, my relationship with beauty and nature, my relationship with my sacred self, or my connection to my God. A willingness to stop living from obligation and living from essence. Maybe resurrection is not something we celebrate once a year, but maybe it's a doorway and a pattern. Maybe it's the holy return of what was always meant to bloom. And maybe this pink moon is simply helping to add fuel as to what we already know and what we already have living inside of us. So what are you ready to return to? So if this is the kind of work that you resonate with, it's the kind of work that I care deeply about. And so I invite you to subscribe now and continue to join me as we discover and walk this path together of returning to our sacred selves and to a woman that still gets to be a high achiever without burnout. To a woman that does not need permission to come back to herself and walks unapologetically in her radiance. And lastly, if you are feeling called, there is a beautiful community that still has some founding member spaces in it called Radiant Evolution Collective, and the link for that is below. All right, happy Easter, happy full pink moon, and may you continue to feel the vibrance and the rejuvenation of spring as it emerges inside of you as well as around you. Be well.